Welcome back to the Incredible Machines podcast, where we sit down with incredible people doing incredible things. Today we speak with Clinton Shum, the founder and owner of Xpect Performance. He is also a golf fitness specialist and podcaster who believes that mindset matters just as much as movement. In this episode, we talk about becoming the hero of your own story, depression, adversity, and the power of hope, why action, gratitude, and present matter. So settle in as we dive deep into an episode filled with vulnerability, philosophical depth, and the practical wisdom from someone who truly practices what he preaches. Let's dive in with the incredible Clinton Shum. You've done the exercise now, from EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization. I get that lifeline.
Is that where you got it from?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then it's a leadership. I've heard that people. Have you done it before?
Mm-mm.
Ever? And how did you find it?
You sent it to me.
Yeah, but I mean, how did you find the experience? Yeah.
It's quite taxing, you know? Like you've got to go back and think really hard about what's going to make the grade there. The highs and the lows. So it is quite a thing. It's certainly worthwhile doing. I mean, I got tremendous value from it.
Yeah.
Similar to, I saw Holden. He posted a thing at the start of the year. I think we spoke about it actually.
Yeah.
The name eludes me at the moment, but it's that little booklet.
Yeah.
And
we call it the perfect year. So you review the year that was, but there's another version of it too, which always
it's got the wabi sabi, that circle, that Japanese circle. And that was tremendous. Like, I really enjoyed that, and I actually gave it out to a whole bunch of my clients at the start of the year.
Yeah.
But it's also that when they say you have to do 2025 and then have a break and then do 2026 a couple of days later.
Okay.
Because if you do it properly, it's quite a draining experience.
Yeah.
To think about, the things that you could have done better and the things that you're really stoked about, and then what you take away from it, and so on and so forth. To then have a break and have mental clarity to then go and do 2026 and then project forward
that's interesting. I missed that rule. I like that rule because it is exactly that. It's very taxing and there's a lot of work, and I like to sleep on big questions. I say that like if and you would unpack a bunch of things that you got wrong and right, and things and then sleep on it and then go. Yeah, that's very cool.
You can't rush those things as well. So like, if I've got it in the gym, and then I'll reflect back on it like every couple of months, maybe every 4 or 5 months. And it's interesting to see like what my word for the year was. And how close am I to that? Have I acted in accordance to that word? And have I given it credence? And it's really quite something to think about, to like, okay, what if there was a single word, what would I want that word to be, to summarize and to be the compass for my entire year in terms of the decisions that I make, the way I conduct myself, so on and so forth. And it really like cuts through all the bullshit, And
called the yearly compass exercise, I think. Yeah.
Yes, the compass.
Triggered when you said compass. So yearly compass, I'll put links out because it's such a phenomenal exercise. In terms of the words, have you found that, like the word for the year, have you found that you've nailed it's been useful to you, or you've stuck to it, or you've seen, I did deviate, or?
Yeah, so my word for the year, or this year, was courage. And I wanted to make more courageous decisions. I wanted to be bolder in my decision making, my approach, both in my professional life and in my personal life. And that comes into fatherhood as well. We've got a young family, so I think I definitely have. I think I was already pretty courageous on the family front. I think my tendency in the business front is to always err on the side of being more conservative. So I think that was definitely something that I've tried to hold myself to account, to be more courageous and bolder in decision making. And that might not even be a representation of what is happening. Do you know what I mean? Like, from the outside in, it might look completely different to somebody else. But
I was going to disagree.
Yeah, but for me, that's not what was internal, So I felt like I wasn't being bold enough, courageous enough. And that's why I felt like it was something that I needed to do and to keep front of mind, because I suppose that is not my tendency internally. It's like I always remember Jordan Peterson talking about how he hates conflict, but he always he's not afraid to engage in
It's
conflict.
necessary. It can be
Yeah,
necessary.
it can be necessary, and he has a willingness to do it even though he finds it uncomfortable. But you wouldn't think from the outside, like, he doesn't like conflict,
Yeah.
Same for me, is that it would be a lot easier for me to just sit back and let things play out and not be proactive. So I think from that perspective, it's helped, because we've opened a second studio. So we've got a studio in Kloof now, and that was the next big step to like scaling and growing a business. We've got a second child on the way in September.
Congrats.
So
Well,
yeah,
congrats
thanks.
on both accounts, but
Yeah,
especially.
So these are all things that were front of mind with respect to making those decisions, making the courageous decision, because you can talk yourself out of it so quickly as well.
So the work on that compass, that yearly compass that you did, you feel that benefited you and you revisited it, and that word courage, just the awareness of it, do you feel that that's the biggest thing? Or
Yeah, I think it's a pact between your past and your future self. So nobody knows you like you. Like, you can call yourself out on your own BS, if you want to. You can also lie to yourself if you want to. So I know that in the past, I've accumulated enough evidence to suggest that I am capable at what I'm doing, and that there's no logical reason why I shouldn't take the next step. So to then say, I'm thinking of this thing at the start of this year, and future Clinton in the middle of the year is going to, maybe kick it down the road for 2 months. Maybe don't do that. Maybe don't ask this person to be on the show. Maybe don't open up the second studio. I'm anticipating that in advance, to be like, no, you've got the stuff. It's time to go now. And that word is just there to hold that sort of decision that I made at the start of the year to account. So in that respect, it has become very powerful. But at the same time, you have to be willing to make that decision that you're going to allow it to be powerful. You can also kick the can down the road and be like, oh, life got in the way, the year ran away with me, and before I knew it, it was December 2026 and not much happened. You can blame it on busy family life, kids, whatever. So it's like when people come into the gym. One of the best ways I can tell if somebody is going to stick to training is if they've done some kind of previous race. So comrades, mid-mile mile, even something like the Amashova. Even though I haven't done comrades, I haven't done Amashova, I've done mid-mile mile a few times. If they've played competitive sport, is a really high predictor in my experience of people sticking to the program, because they have already displayed in previous times that willingness to move past what's uncomfortable, to push themselves mentally and physically. So those guys by far can get going quicker and can stick with it when the going gets tough. So when they've decided to come into the gym, they've already made that lock-in mentally. Like, the work is pretty much done from there. I don't have to convince them of anything. The folks that are coming in really cold, have never had any gym experience, haven't played much sport when they were growing up. It's a major mental adjustment for them to then get into something and stick with it, because they don't know what's coming, and they don't know how difficult it is from doing nothing. So those people, you have to really like sort of coax them out slowly but surely, and then finally build their confidence to then get them to actually make an identity shift. I am the type of person that goes to gym, versus I wasn't the type of person that goes to gym. I am the type of person that will choose a chicken salad when I go out to a restaurant instead of a pizza. So it is an interesting one, because those folks who come into the gym have to make a decision and then stick to it. And then the rest is the easy part. Just like the word, if I've made the decision, I can make it and then let it fall by the wayside, or I can hold myself to account. So and these are the decisions we're confronted with on a daily basis.
It's interesting. When coming to your gym, do you qualify people? Do they have to do any kind of questionnaire? Do you ask them if they've done those sort of events? Okay.
Yeah. So like
And
a lifestyle audit. I call it
okay,
a
cool.
lifestyle audit. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then you're asking, so you're figuring out whether this is going to be this is a potential life for you as well as a business sense, like a life. It gives you an idea, or this is going to be a lot of work. I've got to help them change their mind, essentially.
Mm.
Do you ever suggest that they do omit like those difficult things?
No, because for them coming to the gym is that difficult thing.
Okay.
So for them just being here and starting and putting themselves in a position where they feel uncomfortable, where they feel vulnerable, they're not putting themselves in their best position. This is not a strength of theirs, because otherwise they would be doing it already, going to Virgin Active, training themselves, being disciplined with respect to their fitness. So for them, this is the thing. And then if it ever evolves into something more, like they want to go run a marathon or they want to do whatever, then that's absolutely fine. More power to them. But for a lot of people, just getting there is
the thing.
Yeah.
And you made me think of. I mean, you mentioned Jordan Peterson off the bat here. Like, so you made me think of that rule is treat yourself like you were someone you cared for. And because you said you know it's like the thing, you know everything you are capable of. I think he said. I said that once to somebody, and they were like, "Yeah, so you know all the good that, like, you know what you. That's what's frustrating. It's frustrating because you know that you're capable of more." Is that something you resonate with?
I like the idea that Rich Mulholland put forward in his episode with me about potential, and how potential can be quite a burden, because where does it end? You have potential. My potential is to achieve this, to make this, to look this way. And then you get there. The goalposts just keep moving. So then how do you end up content? And how do you end up fulfilled? It's just this never-ending hamster wheel. And then what he said is you essentially die a failure. And he's not wrong. He's not wrong. So I like to think of life as the hero's journey. Okay. We all are here and we are all trying to be better. So that's why people resonate with The Lion King, with the Avengers, and so on, with Harry Potter, etc. Because it's a hero's journey. The definition of a hero means you have to overcome adversity. You can't be a hero without having something difficult to overcome, by definition. So I like to think of trying to be the hero of my own story. I know my limitations. I know the setbacks that I've had. I'm also aware of what's possible if I continue to strive to be better, and to put hard work in, and to be attentive and present in the moment. So I prefer to think of it as that rather than me trying to reach my potential, because reaching a potential also infers that you're not in the present moment. You're always working towards something in the future, which has always been a problem for me. I need to be in the moment. I don't need to be the guy that's thinking what happens in a year from now, 2 years from now. You tell somebody who has an incredible work ethic that they need to like relish the grind and they need to be the hardest worker in the room. That oak's going to be depressed and he's going to have no marriage and he's going to be divorced and no relationship with his kids. You tell him that. You tell somebody who's lazy that, absolutely, they take it on board. They'll start to improve their life. So you have to know what message to deliver to a person. I'm not the guy you have to tell to work harder. I'm the guy who has to learn how to be present and in the moment, and not try and forecast what potential this might have. because, and the irony is that when you are present in the moment, then that's when the good stuff happens, because you don't miss out on the little bits. The way, if I equate it to the gym, the way a person tells you that they're fine when they're not fine. If you're not in the moment, you don't see that. You think, okay, cool, right, let's go, let's get after it. So there was a guy who came in and he was sitting. I was like, so how are you doing today? He's like, yeah, I'm good. He shakes his head. I was like, you sure you're good? Yeah, I'm good. Shakes it again. Like, we're going to do this a third time. You sure you're good? Oh, no, actually, I'm not good. I was like, yeah, I can tell. Because subconsciously, you were shaking your head to say, no, I'm not good. I need to have a chat. And there's things I want to unpack. But we're so used to, hey, how's it going? Yeah, good on you. Cool. And then off we go and we keep and we move on. So I think for me, it's about being attentive and in the moment. And that's where the magic will happen. And that's where things start to grow. So we have connections with people, we build relationships. And that is when I feel like I'm in my flow. That makes sense.
No, I love it. Well, thanks for unpacking it. It was interesting when I said it to going back to what the question I asked was, and around that, you know everything you're capable of. The person that I said it to, they were like, yeah, you know your full potential. And like, I agree. I love the Rich Holland reference to he's an incredible machine. And yeah, we're hoping to get him into Durban soon for a TEDx talk. So
very
that's
cool.
news. That's so be confirmed shortly.
I'll
But
be
either
there for
way,
sure.
yeah.
He's
No, Luke
brilliant.
and I actually met at TEDx.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Eh? Hey,
So
that's so cool.
Durban, yeah. But I said it to somebody, yeah, that you know what you're capable of, and it was funny. He went for that. Yeah, you're not your full potential, and it's all. And it was quite pressured. A very anxious individual. Not that I'm not, but I don't know if I've shared this with you, Luke. But my thing was like, oh, that's so interesting. You go to the positive. I went to the negative, which is I know what I've done. I know everything I've done. I'm with me all the time, and I know everything I did wrong, and I did it incorrectly, and I could it be better, and that's where I went, and I didn't see the potential, and it's a yin yang thing. So, and I agree. What you made me think of is that like too much of anything can be a bad thing, even moderation. We must moderate our moderation. So as a caveat. But yeah, so that's where I was going with that. It's really interesting that you mentioned, and I want to spend a bit of time on this because I feel the some of the most knowledgeable people in terms of the hero's journey, from what I've heard you speak before and then now, and then Luke is where I've really gotten massive learnings on the hero's journey. So like it was yeah, I mean I've heard of it before, people hear about it, and then they gloss over it. But I mean, Luke, where did you first hear about it? Because and then we'll ask Clint.
Jeez, Drew. I know Peterson. I picked it up earlier when you started talking. I was like, oh, you've been listening to Peterson. So Peterson definitely. There's actually a really helpful framework called the brand story framework by Donald Miller. So he unpacks it. It's a storytelling framework for marketing. So that's one of the places I picked it up from. And then you just through talking and with people and just observing, studying movies and stories, and it's the common thread.
Yeah.
I mean, stories has been with us as long as humans have been alive. That's why we still here, is the ability to tell stories. So,
And you went quite deep into that hero's journey, though. I remember. I don't know if it's still prevalent or it was just like you still have it always. It's always a thing because it sounds like it's
I think
definitely a framework for you.
with clients and with people we work with, it's definitely always a thing. Even in marketing, I think one of the worst mistakes we do is we make ourselves compete with our client. And it's like, no, we're not the hero of the story here. You as the client or you as the viewer are the hero of the story. So it rolls out in everything.
That's interesting, and
Absolutely
that's like yeah. And that's so because you're making me think of Rich Marlin's one of his previous books, Here Be Dragons. And it's like it's exactly that. Like, so he's a story selling and and that, but he also talks to that heroes. So I speak to my team about that. It's like when we go in, we've got a cred deck and we've got a thing, and like that's our story. The only way
Yeah.
what does he say? Um, there's the story, and there's your story, and there's a story that people care about, and that's not
Mm,
often the same thing. And they probably care about their story. So we go in and we start unpacking their story and stuff.
Yeah.
How did you come across that hero's journey and bit of back? Yeah, like did you study psychology or anything? Because it seems like you're in that world.
yeah. So I think probably a bit of Peterson influence, I would say. That would probably be the biggest influence. And he did a wonderful segment where he took apart the Lion King.
Mm, I'm familiar.
And I mean, like, just so powerful. So powerful how Simba has to overcome adversity. So Mufasa dies. He then goes into a phase where there's like sort of deep nihilism, like nothing in the world matters.
Mm,
And it sort of manifests itself when he finds these two characters in the jungle and Hakuna Matata. And that was sort of this nihilistic approach to the world and completely absconding yourself of any responsibility because that was the way of dealing with the pain.
mm,
And then to have that complete journey come full circle where there's that call to responsibility through Rafiki and linking his roots to his father and what that means, and then taking on that responsibility. And just that scene where he hits him on the head with this thing, and he hits him on the head, and he says, "Oh, that hurts." And he says, "Yeah, the past can hurt, but you either run from it or you learn from it." Then he takes another swipe, and then he ducks. And I just thought that it's a kid's movie, but like I've
Mm.
learned so much from The Lion King.
Huge
It
man.
blows my mind every single time.
Yeah.
And what's interesting, going back to like the hero's journey, is how it's changed me since I've become a father. So, when you're Lighty, you identify more as Simba, you the cool little prince and you rolling around and you're having a jaw. And then you become a father, and then now as I'm getting older I start to identify more with the character of Mufasa, and that's just the timelessness of a good creation,
mm,
because you evolve and the movie has so many different depths and layers that as you evolve through your life, that movie still has significance, but now for different reasons. And it's just marvelous,
mm,
just an
Mm.
incredible movie. So I wouldn't say I've studied it. There's some influence psychology. We did like entry level psychology at varsity, but I've always taken an interest in psychology, why people do what they do.
mm,
Essentially, exercise is behavior modification. Somebody's coming to you because they're not doing X and they want to do X, and now you have to help them do that because they haven't been able to do it
mm,
themselves. So you have to try and change that person's behavior, give them the tools, both physically, but at the same time try to coax them into making the mindset shift so that they can then do it for themselves. Because if a person comes to train with me 3 times a week, for example, that's 3 hours out of quick maths. What's 24 times 7?
mm,
168. So I've got them for 3. They've got another 165 on their own. If I don't set them up and give them the tools and try and help them to make those decisions for themselves outside of the gym, it's going to be a losing battle. It doesn't matter how many times they train, actually. They might get stronger. That's easy. But how do you facilitate real change where not only your physical has changed, but your mental, your psychological, how you approach and how you overcome adversity and things like that? So it's not something that I've tried to actively pursue and study. It's more sort of learnings that I've accumulated along the way in my own journey. And then you chat to people and I try and say something and some of it will land. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay, that landed. Then I try it again with somebody else and, oh, what landed a second time? There must be something there. Keep
mm.
that bit. Try something else. That didn't work too well. Okay, leave that. So it's trial and error along the way.
Yeah, it's interesting. I call it testing the material. Like I'm always testing certain material and
Mm,
see what works and what doesn't. And then I put it in the Arsenal, the archive.
Yeah, that's true.
Some of the Lion King. I need to ask this question because we were fortunate to have a new starter join us in a position, and I was doing job description and responsibilities, and I saw this meme that had the Lion King, and it was like your job responsibility, your areas. It's like everything the light touches. And I felt like sending that. I was like, no, that's not the right time for this material. So I held back on it. But the question is, which Lion King? Because I always think of the original Disney animation one. Are the other ones any good?
No, I haven't wasted my time with any of the others.
Have you?
I've watched the remake. Average. Yeah.
Dude,
And
there's
then
just
there's
no way
some-
you can
there's
better
more
the
songs
first
again.
one.
Beautiful about the first one. It's like, I think I remember watching it. We came on holiday to Durban, and we went to the cinema at, it must have been Musgrave or somewhere. I don't even
Yeah.
remember where it was. I think it was not. No, it must have been like 6. I don't. It's just timeless.
Mhm.
And then have you watched it on IMAX?
No.
Dude, IMAX is incredible because you sit at the back and you watch, like, all those frames are hand painted. And that scene on Pride Rock when they pan the camera like this and you see the stone is like moving like this, and every frame is hand painted, and it's like there's just so many layers of depth. And that movie for me also,
All time.
I'll teary every time I watch it.
Mm.
Actually, what's really interesting is that when I was in London a couple of years ago, I went to the theater and we watched the theatrical version. I don't know if you've seen it.
Apparently that's good.
Holy cow! And they've got a segment in there that's not in the film script. That just, like, it wrecked me. That whole UK trip out. That's all I thought about. Now it's just this mess. I was just like, it was incredible. So
I've heard the production is very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
theatrical production.
Okay.
phenomenal. Yeah.
Awesome.
OG though. OG or theater. That's it. There's
Yeah.
That's
no-
it. Okay, guys, for the listeners
Yeah.
and watchers, OG. And I got to watch it with the kids. I'm not sure. I think we've watched it once, but it sounds like one I got to revisit. I mean, it comes up a lot, and obviously, because I do this thing, I spend 10 minutes, I've told Luke this, 10 minutes with Jordan every day in the shower. I listen to Jordan
I
Peterson
think
clip.
I've heard you speak about this
We
before.
might have talked about it on your podcast. So I often get his learnings while I'm listening, and then putting on the cold, but I've switched to a bit of ice bath now and sauna. So I don't know if we can talk about that a bit.
In the
if you-
winter.
yeah, it's been difficult, but
Nice.
I'm ending on hot. I feel like I was cheating, but I was in Cape Town recently at this Ignite, and I ended on cold the one day, and because that's how that's what Dr. Uberman has told me to do.
Yes,
So like whoever's told me to do it, I've it's Wim Hof or whoever. I always knew to end on cold, and then I was cold the entire day, and I didn't realize it until I was in the sauna the next morning, and I was like, it's difficult to end on cold. The guy next to me was like, why are you ending on cold? You can end on hot. I was like, yeah, I just thought it was that's the prescription. It's like, no, you're going to be cold the whole day. I was like, yeah, I was actually cold the whole day. So now it made my winter Hillcrest ice bath much better because I'm starting hot, doing the cold. I do 3 minutes now. I'm no longer doing the 10-minute stints that I was doing before. And that's a lot better. And then I'm ending on the hot. Is that something you prescribe to any of the things this cold?
Look, I mean, it's got tremendous benefits. So you can do that contrast therapy, which is the hot, cold, or you could just do the cold as well. Obviously, there's a lot of anti-inflammatory properties, reduce inflammation, things like that. There's some research now that suggests that that cold immersion is not great for hypertrophy, so it might stunt your muscle growth
I've heard
slightly.
that too, yeah.
But again, I mean, we splitting hairs as far as that's concerned. I think the great thing about the ice baths is more the mental thing and the cold
It's do
exposure.
hard things too. Yeah.
Yeah, to do things, to do hard things voluntarily. So we are all going to have to overcome adversity in some way, shape, or form. If you're unlucky, a lot of that will be involuntary. So things that happen to you, trauma, tragedy, etc. But if you're fortunate, a lot of your life, if you construct it in that way, will be microdoses of voluntary adversity. So engaging in exercise is a tough thing to do. You are having to overcome adversity when you're doing that. Not feeling like you're going to the gym, you go and do it anyway. Not feeling like a cold shower or an ice bath, doing it anyway. And that will, to some degree, immunize you against those times in life when you have involuntary adversity.
Mm.
And it's the people that I've seen who are unable to engage in those micro voluntary bouts of adversity are hit the hardest when life throws them a curveball.
When the flood comes, yeah.
Yeah, because they don't have the skills necessary to deal with it. And they then have to learn on the fly or they sink.
Mm.
Which is an incredibly hard thing to try and do at the time when it's all going down.
Mm.
So for me, exercise is incredibly important as far as that's concerned. And then the cold therapy would be an extension of that. So I did it for a long time. I've stopped now. Not because I don't think it's good. I do think it's good. I just I like to practice gratitude in the mornings when I'm having my hot shower at 5 o'clock and be very grateful that I've got hot water coming out the taps.
Yeah, so I did this. I eventually bought. So I just had a wine barrel, and I used to put bags of ice. And I'd measure it. I'd get down to like up sometimes 5 degrees, and I'd get in there and I'd spend 10 minutes in there, make it worth it. But I actually bought this chest freezer that somebody's done a number on. Is great. I actually give his details in the. I don't know if he's still doing, but we could put it in the episode somewhere. But or people can ask about it. But it was a way more cost-effective way of these ice baths because they
Yeah.
can be like 80.
Brew bonkers, 130.
Yeah, 80 up.
Mm.
And then this was way more cost-effective, and you can do it online yourself too. But I just there people for that, and this guy was really great at this. But then I went and added myself to the equation, and I had this thing about 3 I was working on right now, and the number 3, and I did a talk recently about my 3 things and that, and I decided that 3 degrees would be a good number to have the thing at. And what I've come to realize is that it's just not. It's way too cold, and I don't know if it's the temperature is not measuring that because it's seeming a lot colder because it doesn't seem like that much. 5 degrees was fine, and 5 degrees is fine now. 'Cause I've been doing it last week. I was doing it 5, but 3 was just no ways. Like it's so interesting. It's only 2 degrees, but a difference.
But you're also nearly halving it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. You
Yeah.
guys. Yeah, thank you. I don't feel so bad because I was just like,
It's
this
almost
is
double the difference,
really
yeah.
tough at 3 degrees, but 5 degrees I'm good at now, and I can do it. On that, there was something that I wanted to transition. I'm just going to make a really, obnoxious one. Luke talked about coming to Durban. Have you always been a Durban?
I grew up in Kloof. Well,
Okay.
I grew up in Waterfall, then went to Kloof, went to high school in Kloof, and then moved to Durban. We were in Durban until last year. Came back up the hill.
Up the hill.
Mm.
It's you're talking about like it's another land, which it is. It is a bit different. So in that lifeline, are there any things that you learnt on or learnt the highs and the lows that you think have made you into the person you have? Was schooling like? What is that like?
I was very fortunate. I think I had to think hard in my childhood about some lows, which I think is a good indication that you had a pretty good childhood. Because I didn't really have anything that was that bad.
Mm.
I really enjoyed my time in primary school. I went to Forest View Primary and made excellent friends and had such a joy. My mom was a teacher there, so that was also pretty cool. So it was nice to have her there as well, and transitioned into Kloof High, and then also had such a joy there. My closest friends are still my friends from there, barring one, and I was just incredibly fortunate. And then went to varsity in UKZN, Westfall. Got through that in 4 years, and then and then started to enter into the professional world. As far as the highs and the lows were concerned, maybe it's recency bias, because as you get older, you tend to forget a lot of things in your
Mm.
childhood.
Mm.
So things that stand out to me, I was incredibly proud in 2017. I went overseas for the first time. The first time I was ever on a plane, I was in matric. Never been on a flight before until then. And then first time I ever went overseas, I was 27. And that was to further my education with respect to the golf fitness stuff. So there's a company called the Untitled Performance Institute, and they specialize in golf fitness and understanding how your body might be impacting on your golf swing, and then how to train people accordingly for that. And I'd done the first 2 levels, which you can do online. And then the final level, you have to go there to their HQ, which is in Oceanside, California, in San Diego. And as part of that trip to go and do my final level 3 certification, my girlfriend and I, at the time, she was my girlfriend, she's now my wife, we went to America and we traveled there. And that was just the most incredible experience, because for me, growing up, going overseas was just not something on your radar.
Mm.
There was no, we went on incredible family holidays locally, but overseas was just never something that ever even remotely entered the picture. So at that time, to have worked hard to build a client base and to then further my education, and then at the same time to go with Lisa and be overseas for the first time, was just the most incredible feeling. And it's still something that I'm very proud of today. And I'd love to go back there, because we did Manhattan and I loved Manhattan. It's just such an incredible place. And then spend most of the time on the West Coast after that. And that for me always stands out as something that really then transcended what I thought would be possible if you work hard, etc. So it shifted the way that I viewed what was possible for me, for my life, professionally and personally.
Mm.
So that always has stood out as a personal sort of milestone. And then obviously when you speak about profound moments, when you have your first child's born, it's just, yeah, just the most incredible thing.
Mm.
Um,
You get quite emotional
mm,
there.
yeah,
It
it's
is.
impossible not to, you know. It just creates this depth that you didn't realize was possible. So I can talk about my America trip and not get emotional, but I can't talk about being a father and extending a family. That is just, you want to talk about meaning. They say meaning's created, you know. That is just the ultimate. So if I had to summarize it into 2 things, those would probably be the really 2 highs. And there's been contrasted with some lows as well. I would say I've had 2 bouts of depression along as I've gone into adulthood in 2020, and then I want to say 2023, around there. So that was something that I really had to work hard at, to try and figure out where to from here. How do we move past this, and how do we navigate our way out of this situation? And that was tough. And it's a difficult thing to explain to somebody who hasn't gone through depression,
Mm-hmm.
because the biggest thing that I struggled with was I've got nothing to be depressed about. You know, like there was this guilt
Mm.
that there's people that are in way worse off positions than I, who may or may not be depressed. I don't know if they are. I've got no idea. But that's the narrative, and that's what I was telling myself. It was that there's this weird contrast between I know how I'm feeling, and I know I feel terrible, and I don't know how to get out of it. But at the same time, I don't know if how I'm feeling is an appropriate response for the current state of my life. And then you're conflicted in that way. So at that stage, it then becomes very difficult to separate the wheat from the chaff. But you slowly but surely put one foot in front of the other, and you work your way out of it. And then again, that's also, again, coming back to the hero's journey, right? Overcoming adversity. And without question, it's made me stronger. It's made me more aware of what's possible if you neglect certain areas in your life.
Mm.
Um, so I would say those contrasted with the highs and the lows, I would say make up the majority of my timeline.
Just if you're comfortable with it, let me know. But the 2020 is around COVID, and I resonate with that. I've
Mm.
suffered from depression for most of my life, actually. But 2020, I can imagine it was quite easy for the world to be quite fall into depression. Was it related to COVID or?
No, it wasn't related to COVID. I actually didn't mind COVID, to be honest. I I don't mind when random things out of my control happen. Really. So COVID wasn't, apart from the obvious financial pressure that it places, especially having been a gym owner. I didn't really battle with that. So no, it definitely it wasn't related to COVID in that sense. It's just things happen in life that you don't forecast and you don't see ever happening, and when you have things that you think are dead certainties, and then it shifts, and then something happens and it shifts the way that you might see everything. Because if something was a dead certainty in your life, and then it no longer becomes a certainty, then what about all the other things in your life that you thought were certain? So then that web just grows, and then it casts incredible doubt into how you view your version of reality.
It's kind of you remind me of Tell the Truth, or at least Don't Lie, is the rule. It's one of my favorites, actually. And it's if somebody's one of the reasons, there's multiple reasons for why you should tell the truth, but one of them that I feel like we might share a power of overthinking, a superpower of being an overthinker. I don't know if you've ever had that. You overthink it all, but I definitely do. One of the problems when someone has lied to you, is what else are they lying about? And that sounds like reality, or whatever your vision or the thing. It seems like was maybe it was potentially it was incorrect, and then what else is also incorrect? That does remind me of that.
Yeah, I think that's also a link to, that's like the anxiety loophole, that sort of feedback loop, is because then you then start to forecast all these different things in the future that may or may not happen, that virtually never happen. So
that's the superpower, huh?
mm,
The overthinking.
yeah,
Being hairy is one of my superpowers. Being anxious, being awkward. I think I've said.
yeah,
I think
you've
I've
said,
told you
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Being
yeah.
awkward is a superpower. But yeah,
I've certainly, as I've got older, become much better at managing that side of it,
okay.
for sure. I think for me, I'm accumulating enough evidence to suggest that the things that I were anxious about didn't end up happening. So then the more I go along and the more I experience life, the more evidence I have to suggest that all those times when I thought for sure this thing was going to happen, it didn't end up happening. So then I can nip it in the bud a little faster, because like, well, dude, none of the other stuff you were worried about ended up happening anyway. So this one probably won't either.
And you said a word there. I love this. It triggered me. Is worry. And there's that quote about worrying. Worrying's like a rocking chair. It's something to do, but it doesn't get you anywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then 2023 was quite
Yeah.
similar, or
I think that was, how old was I there? I'm 32. Yeah. That was a bit of a tricky one, because it like kind of snuck up on me. Like you get caught up in the sort of the routine of life, and and then you start to go through the motions, and then you start to think, well, I guess that's what people mean when they have an existential crisis. Is this it? You know, that's the fundamental question that everybody asks themselves at some stage or another. Is this it? Is this all that my life is going to be? Drive to work, these four walls, train people, go home. And it sounds like a very ungrateful stance to have, but I think that's what there's that conflict and that wrestling with depression that happens, because you feel like, no man, you must be grateful for what you've got, and of course you should, but if there's something chemically that is not lining up, then it doesn't matter how many times people say you need to write down 5 things in the morning to be grateful for. It ain't gonna help. And until you address and you make some changes that are gonna stack the deck in your favor for long enough to then come over it. So I think for me, it was about working through what was next for me in my life. And ironically, what was born out of that was the podcast.
Okay.
Because,
so
yeah.
I want to get to the podcast, so let's
Mm.
talk about that. But just to close off on this, close this loop for me for the listeners and stuff. So someone explained to me, I think it was like sad. You can be sad about something because of something, but depression, it doesn't work. It's not a because of. It can be in spite of. So that's where people get it wrong. You think it's like
I
in
like that.
spite of,
Yeah.
like in spite of everything. It's just is.
Mm-hmm.
So and share. My guests, our guests have shared this before. I don't know if I have exactly, but I work with for my mental health, and the medicines I choose uh, have moved away more from Western medicines and more to psychedelics, for instance, and that. So, ayahuasca, the nishipai, I'll sit in ceremony, and people will say that in ceremony you do a circle. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this at all.
I know roughly about the ayahuasca. Yeah.
Okay. So they often in the ones that I've partaken in, there'll be a circle, and people will tell you their stories about and often it's why they're there. And the stories I've heard are just like the most tragic things, and then they get to John, and like I just heard these, and they're like, "So why are you here?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm sad." And they're like, "Okay," and I'm like, "I'm just sad." Like that's it.
Mm.
And I'd say it as a joke, but I use it as humor. It's part of my material as a joke. But like, your suffering is relative, and that's important to know. And that it's really important to know and understand and stuff. And then you can also be grateful for in the comparative as well. It allows you. There's this great Sam Harris quote that always comes to mind. There are at least 1 billion people that would give anything, that they have everything to be in your position. So going to a job with 4 white wall and doing the thing that that can be terrible, but there's at least 1 billion people that are on war torn or start or whatever, and that's just like something to go. When I really realized that, I think I was just like, okay, cool. Yeah, I have got something to grateful. How do I formalize a gratitude into my life and make it, because it's difficult to see. Even it still is. It's in spite of that. I can still stay in spite of that. But yeah, there's so many things that you've said. There's this. I get it from Malcolm Gladwell. I'm not sure where he got it from. It's like, pay attention to your attention, and I feel like you you've said that at the beginning of this conversation so many times. It comes in a form of awareness. Now, the awareness is amazing. Are you an Eckhart Tolle fan?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Power of
I
Now.
thought so,
Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah, I absolutely love it. Love it. I love the power of now and that. And then, but again, too much of anything could be a thing. You need to moderate your moderation even. But yeah, that I sit with that, and you mentioned microdosing earlier. I microdose now in order to because of my depression and to help me with that. And Yeah, it has helped me, I think, greatly. Um,
Do you know what one of the things I love about gratitude? One of my favorite lines is gratitude is a precondition for joy,
that's beautiful.
which is so good, man. It's like you can't be joyous if you aren't able to express gratitude first. That the joy doesn't happen until you can be grateful.
It's amazing. We do this exercise. I speak about it fairly often, and I got it from somebody, uh, uh, somewhere along the line during COVID. Actually, it was quite difficult to do, but we execute as a team. We do the one word, which is an EO presencing exercise, essentially.
Mm.
What is your one word? How are you feeling today? At this moment in time, not today. At this moment in time, how are you feeling?
Mm.
And then it's like, it's not good or bad, thinking makes it so, but it does give me the awareness of I'm feeling this way. It also gives the team leads the understanding and awareness of like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe don't approach them on that thing now. Or if there's certain trigger words I'll have, like if someone says they're overwhelmed, I know that's a terrible place to be. I'm gonna try and help them move them from that state. But in order to move from states, it's often really great to be aware of things, and then you can
Mm.
decide how to move to the next state. Um, Gratitude is the next exercise, and the state we would like to get them to is joy. I imagine it. I didn't think of it like until you mentioned it, but gratitude. The next exercise is called yesterday's best. So, what's the best thing that happened yesterday? And in COVID, it was difficult because I did have team members that were losing family members, and the best thing was that the day ended. And then,
Mm.
but that's still like that's still the best thing. And then we know, like, cool, that we know where they are potentially, and hopefully that today is going to be better. There's going to be one little thing that'll be better in the next. The day ending could be the best thing, but there's always something to be grateful about. And then I love that it's a prerequisite to joy.
Precondition for
Precondition.
yeah.
Perfect.
Gratitude is a precondition for joy.
Love it.
Yeah. And then hope is a precondition for perseverance.
Okay.
So if you are in a hopeless situation, then what grounds do you have to persevere on? So if you are in a completely hopeless situation, so let's say Man's Search for Meaning. You know, Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. So the most atrocious circumstances, you literally, as they arrived into the camp, they were looked at, inspected, and you either went left or you went right. If you went the correct way, you survived. If you went the other way, you were in the chamber, and off you went. That was it. And under the most atrocious circumstances, he was able to find hope through logotherapy and so on. And as a result, he was able to persevere. But if you are in a truly hopeless situation where for some reason or other there is zero hope, then what grounds do you have to persevere? So hope is a precondition for perseverance.
Sure. That's powerful. Very, very cool. The other thing you made me think of that got me onto the microdosing and going down that route was the control, that you don't seem to be worried too much about when you don't have control of things. So I get this often when I'll speak about psychedelics and people say, "Oh, I'd love to, but like I have this fear of loss of control." Okay, that's the
Mm.
most common answer I get. Like, I don't like not being in control. And then like my little the dark side of the yin and yang like gets a little grin and says like, "Oh, you think you're in control?"
Mm.
And I had
Yeah.
this joke the other day with just as a executional example, and it's pretty weak, but I just thought it was funny. Was that like I understand that I'm not in control a lot of the time, and I think everyone loves to get to a place where they feel like they're in control. Maybe I love big wave riding because there were moments of control that I
Mm.
could grab, and that was amazing. But otherwise, I was not in control. It was like, and I some have some prescription for beatings that I really like.
Mm.
So when the consequence becomes way more prevalent when the wave is bigger and that sort of thing. But
You
my
enjoy that.
Yeah.
Really, eh?
There's got to be some. You got to risk it to get the biscuit, and then if you, sometimes you just need to get. You
So
won't.
when I get to the top, I crap myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
But
falls.
but the example I had about the control was that I said was, so my wife and I were discussing. This is before our second child was born, and we were discussing to get a puppy for our firstborn. And we had the discussion, and I thought we were aligned in that thing, and we were still discussing it. And then next thing I knew, we had a puppy. I'm definitely not in control, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so like people to think about that maybe is like, how much of it are you actually ever in control of? Like, that's quite funny. It's like I actually sent it to Rich, but I sent it because I know he 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 practices Buddhism, and he prescribes to a few things. I've heard it in his words anyway. Um, we think we have time. It's like that. Yeah, there's so many things like that that we think we have. That it's like time. We don't have time. Time is us,
Mm.
and you're not in control. Like, but just that's okay. There's some things you can still do.
Yeah,
You still have
exactly.
agency in that in regards. But
So I think I would subscribe to that the control thing with the psychedelics. That's definitely would be that is a reservation that I have.
mm,
I've done the microdosing on the psilocybin, and I didn't really find it did a hell of a lot. I just think it wasn't a high enough dosage,
mm,
to be honest. But that would be the reservation that I have as well. So I would share that
mm,
in that respect.
mm.
The yeah, I don't know, like you just think, what if I just decide that I'm gonna get into my car and then just flip and go somewhere or do something ridiculous, you know?
Mm. I don't
But
know that that's ever the case. There's always those rumors like that, the urban legends that someone threw themselves out of a window because they thought they could fly. But that's kind of been proved as it was just an urban
yeah,
legend, I think. And
but that's the that's what's going on, you
mm,
know. I
mm,
think that's probably what people are referring to when they're like, I don't know what I'm gonna do when I'm in this state, you know, and not being in control of their how they feel, their decision making, or their whatever. So I guess
mm,
I get where they're coming from there, but it's something that I do definitely want to try at some stage.
mm. Why?
Why? Just exploration. I don't. There's no particular reason. Um, but I just think it can be an incredible tool for self improvement and self development. Not and it has got tremendous utility for people with like PTSD and that sort of thing. So, but for me, that wouldn't be the reason why I would do it. I would do it for like self exploration um, and curiosity more than anything. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I highly recommend it. But there's so much literature out there, and John Hopkins University is doing
Huge,
amazing work,
man.
huge work.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
had a dude on the show who does ketamine infusions. Um, he's an anesthetist by trade, and they had a ketamine infusion lab where they're helping people with non-responsive depression and PTSD and so on. Fascinating to hear the research and the growing body of research for something like that. You're absolutely right. There's a tremendous amount of research since the war on drugs. I think it was Nixon's war on drugs, right? And one of what I learned there was one of the few psychedelics that made it
And
through.
Reagan. Yeah.
Was it Reagan?
Reagan and Nixon. I think it was Just Say No.
Yeah.
Came after that, but it was a
Mm.
huge, yeah.
And ketamine was one of the few drugs that made it through because they use it in surgeries and things like that. But all the others didn't make it through. They were, it was a hard stop, and the research as a result that would have happened back then didn't happen until
Mm,
now. At the turn of the 21st century, and now we're seeing a lot of those longer term studies showing really good results.
mm,
So yeah, it's an exciting space, that psychedelic space for sure, for
mm,
sure.
yeah. And one of the questions we ask often, and it just gets us back into it, was before we head to next segment, is if you could go back to your 16-year-old self, you can pick an age, but
Mm,
what would you tell yourself now? What would you tell yourself?
mm. Um, Nobody cares nearly as much as you think they do about what you're doing and what you find interesting and what you want to pursue. Barring your immediate circle of obviously family, you should care what they think, and your really close friends, you should care what they think. But people don't care about what you do. You just think they take an interest and they consume themselves with what you find cool and interesting. They don't. They've got their own lives. They've got their own shit to deal with. So I think just the nature of being 16, you also care a lot about what other people think because that's just the season of life that you're in. But I think for me, I cared what people think probably more than what was normal at that age. Maybe not, because I haven't been anybody else, but
But what would make you say that?
because it took me a long time to not care. Uh, Only well into adulthood did I eventually stop caring what people thought. Uh, Clinton, why should he start a podcast? What does he know? You know, why should he start a gym? Uh, how how can he start a second gym? All of these things are just these internal narratives that you think people are saying, but in reality, they haven't really given it a second thought. And you think, oh, how are they gonna perceive me? Do I sound okay? What do people think? That took me a long time to try and move past and to mature through. Whereas now I can definitely say I couldn't give a rat's ass what people think, as long as I know that I'm acting in accordance with what my fundamental values and principles are, and through my decision making, I'm not hurting anybody around me. I'm going, and and that took me a long time to get to that stage.
Mm.
For me, maybe there's people out there who are 20, 21, 22, and they feel like they've got there already. More power to you.
Well, hopefully they
And there's
listen
lots,
to this.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then might be lots of people who are 50 and they still feel like they care too much what people think.
So
So yeah, that for me, if I could have got there faster, uh, and given myself license to get there faster, I think that's what I would have probably said.
yeah, so you've actually, in my understanding, you've gotten there early.
You think so?
So I'll tell you why. So I got the quote from John Sana.
Mm.
I had
I've had Eric
you've
on the
had
show,
Eric Krieger
yeah.
on, another incredible machine. I mean, yeah, the both of them, but John Sana, yeah, for sure. I followed from for ages, and he posted a quote once that um resonated with me. It was like it's something like, it's in your 20s and 30s you care about what everyone thinks, and then in your 40s and 50s you don't care what anyone thinks. You like defiant, like you're like, oh, I don't care what anyone thinks.
Mm.
And then in your 60s and onwards you realize they weren't thinking about you at all.
Mm. That's so true. Eh?
But that's it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
exactly what you said.
Mm.
But again, there's a yin and yang of everything, but especially of that, because it's quite sad that people don't think about each other enough. Like they don't actually, because we're so worried, we're so self-involved and inward, we focusing on our own story, and we've got our own thing, that they weren't thinking about us at all. And
Mm.
we actually attributed all this thing that they're worrying about us. And there's a sadness there with it, but then there's also the freedom, the positive.
Mm.
The voices that I would like to keep cheering are the ones that say, like, they don't even worry about you, just be you,
Yeah.
and that's it. And I think that's 60s and 70s, or in the quote, it's way older than where you are right now. So in
Mm.
my interpretation, you got there quicker. And that you mentioned the podcast, and we mentioned Eric Kruger episode. So just to get on there, I think it was one of our questions as well, is like, why did you start podcasting?
It was something that I've always wanted to do. So I'd kicked the can down the road on that for like a good 5 or 6 years. And I've always been a big consumer of content, podcasts, YouTube videos. I read a fair amount, audio books. So I was always in that space. And I just think through articulating ideas and engaging with people in my day-to-day job as a trainer and helping people and having discussions, navigating through life, I realized that that was the part of the job that I enjoyed the most. Not necessarily the science behind it. You have to have the science and the knowledge of the science to then be good at what you do. But what I found most rewarding is actually the engaging conversations that I have with people on a day to day.
Mm.
And I had a client of mine, Odwa in Dungani, the rugby player, and I would talk with him in the gym about, oh, I've been wanting to do this podcast. And he eventually one day came in and he put his foot down and he said, okay, I've actually had enough of you talking about this and not doing anything. Like, either stop talking about it or do it. And I said to him, okay, cool. Well, if I started, will you be the first guest on the show? And he was like, absolutely. So, and that's how it started. And the way that I just jumped off the proverbial cliff was I, on Take-A-Lot, did research that same day, bought the Rode microphones, bought the arms, went to the only music store, I think it is, in Durban North, and went and bought the audio face and the whole thing. And I was like, okay, cool, now I'm in. Like, I'm not going to be the guy that has these mics sitting in the gym and not ever use them. So then the journey started. And it was a journey from scratch. I had to teach myself everything. I did the editing. I still do the editing. So I had to teach myself how to work Adobe, Premiere Pro. All of that was stuff that I did from scratch. And once I did it, and going back to when I was going through a bit of a down stage, that expression of creativity through the show was something that really gave me renewed vigor and opened up a different avenue to my day to day. And then having those engaging conversations with people. So, and then once you do the first one, then that's the hardest one, because then you get into the groove and you learn a bit and things happen along the way, but it doesn't become so daunting. And that would be the main reason why I decided to go ahead and start doing something.
Mm.
And you just accumulate such a wealth of knowledge by sitting down and having a conversation with a person for an hour.
Mm.
I mean, when do you ever get to do that?
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? And then to also have it where the terms of engagement are preset. So I know I'm coming here to talk to you about things that I've learned in my journey so far. So there's not a hell of a lot that you can ask me that I'm not going to answer.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? Because I've already agreed to be on the show, and vice versa. Like when you came on the show, okay, I'm here, I'm willing to engage, and I'm willing to speak and to share ideas. So you get to connect with a person for an hour like that. And then I don't know if you feel like this, but I feel like after I've had somebody on the show, I feel like I've known them for like years. And you've only just had a conversation with them for an hour.
Mm.
And I think going back to when we spoke first about potential and then how important it is for me to be in the present moment and being mindful, that's like the power of it. So for me, being able to engage with you and vice versa is completely mindful and attentive in the moment. And then you have this experience where it sort of transcends time, because even though I've known you for an hour, I feel like I've known you for 2 years, which is a weird thing, but it's true. Do you feel like that?
I agree with you. I resonate. I think I'm trying to calculate why, or work out why it is. Maybe Luke can jump in here, but it's because the one of the things, just to give context too, is like we formulate the show. We love biographies and we love marketing. So we'll get to your ad you picked. I love it, and then we love quite good quotes. I've said several already, and so we would do this over coffee every day, all day if we could, with people. If it wasn't weird for me to ask you to come bring your lifeline and let's talk about it over coffee, but we put marks in front of people, and they do this thing. But then there's the other thing. It's selfish in that respect, as well as I get to learn about like the things that you said, like everything I'm learning from you, and then I get to give it away for free because it's for free on YouTube and Apple and Spotify. It's an amazing gift that you suddenly you get to give the world. And if you ask the right questions, and hopefully we have asked a few of those, and we will continue, is like then the world benefits from those questions and those answers being just like so incredible. But in order to do that, there's certain pressures that come with it. Like, so I have to pay attention to my attention. I can't be drifting off to like, what's the surf like, or where am I going diving again, or whatever it is. Like, I have to be very attentive, and I'm spending. The hour is multiplied. I would definitely agree with you because you know that I know what the outcome is. Like my biggest thing, I had breakfast with Luke and I had a breakfast this morning, and then like, but generally in the morning before an episode, I'm like, I'm like, cool, can I pull the plug? Like, can we eject? Where's the eject button again? And then afterwards, I'm bouncing off the walls because
Yeah,
it's like gym.
I get that too.
It's like gym.
Yeah.
Like it's the same thing. It's like, how can I not do the hard work today? But then once you've done it, this is that euphoric like thing. So I guess that I do agree with you there, but I do think that the time that we spend together is intense. So we use it for, again, this you would know this is a sampling exercise for people that should have a podcast. You already have one, and you've had one for a while. But like generally our guests have never been on or have never been in a studio. Your first ones were in your own studio that you created. So interesting questions on there and how many you've done. But yeah, so we try to build it in to be clever with the way we sampling or trialing an experience for potential client partners, and to know somebody for a very long time is a great start to a relationship if you want a client partner. So that's kind of why we do it too.
I like how you've tied that in.
Yeah. So it's because I studied marketing. I've had this again, some of my material. We'll see if it lands. I think marketing people like, especially more than others, and everyone likes this, but like marketing people like to be clever more than anyone else in the world. And it's because I've nailed it down. It's because I didn't study medicine. I didn't study to be a lawyer and do my articles and go practice law. And now suddenly I have to appear clever to be of value. And it's like, so now we do these clever things and we try to be clever, and then we can tell everyone about it. But it's not, it's guys, we just didn't do the work earlier. We were lazy, and now, and we did the marketing degree and the honors and that stuff. But yeah, so yeah, it is a high dosage. It's like I met my wife on Bumble during COVID, and then we were thrust into a relationship like that. You couldn't be around. You couldn't do the normal things. You had to. You didn't. Like our first dates were wine and watching Netflix over the phone together. Like we had Netflix playing on the laptop and we were on the phone together. And then we eventually went to a fancy restaurant or a decent restaurant. Usually it's the other way around. We went on a date that when the warden let us out at 6 to 9, remember? We were allowed out to 6 to 9. And then you could extend the date or the time out by going shopping. And then she saw what was in my shopping list, in my shopping bag. And it was like, and she still rags me about this. I had apple cider vinegar that lived in my pantry for about 2 years because I didn't get to that one. But maybe I was showing off that I was trying to be. But you learn like those. That was intense. It was multiplied, like the whatever time dilation sets in or whatever it is. But yeah, I feel it in a podcast. Yours sound. What do you have? Like, have you taken like ultimate learnings that you could just? What are the 3 like learnings out of everything? First of all, how many episodes? What are you on now?
96.
Amazing.
So 96 came out on Monday.
Okay.
Yeah, so 4 to go.
Okay, so we'll have the link in. By the time this comes out, you'll probably be over 100 in the triple digit.
It depends. I normally go once every 2 weeks.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah.
So
So
yeah,
it'll be,
it'll
but
be
we'll have the
around.
link to
Mm,
your channel there and everything. So, but well done for doing it. And then, yeah, back to the question was like sort of biggest learnings that
mm.
you've taken out.
It's such a hard. It's a good question. It's a hard question to try and dilute because you're gonna forget some lessons. It's
Yeah.
like, which is your favorite episode? You're gonna forget one or two people. But I think one of them is never judge an experience. So just because barring exceptional circumstances, like really traumatic events happening to people, something that you might perceive to be unfavorable might actually not be in the long run. So we're quick to judge an experience. This thing is unfavorable. That's just happened to me now. This person who has decided to leave the gym, or this person's got sick, and or this person's immigrating and is leaving the gym. That might seem to be unfavorable at the time, but that might also give room for somebody to come and to bring their wife, where previously there wasn't that
Mm,
space.
mm.
So quick to label things as that's a bad thing that's just happened, and also that's a good thing that's happened. It might not end up being that case in the long run. So I think for me, that is just a nice way to just keep things in perspective.
I have that labeled as maybe. Have you
Mm,
ever? I don't know what episode it would have been for you, but have you ever heard? Because it sounds like that's the one where it's an old tale fable. I don't know what you would label it as now. I think the Chinese
mm,
horse farmer.
mm.
Have you heard that one? Eh?
It rings a bell.
It brings in a horse, breaks his son's leg. Like neighbors say it's terrible. He says maybe, and then
Yes.
the Mao army comes past, and then enlisting all the boys, and his son can't join,
Hmm.
and the villagers say that's wonderful, and he says maybe. That's kind of how it ends. So you don't know what the experience. So I love that. Don't.
Mm.
So the exact line.
Don't judge an experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what it actually might mean.
You don't know what it might mean. But at the same time, it also gives you agency to decide what you want to do with that experience.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like you're not a victim to the circumstance or to the thing. So you can decide to label it as a bad thing, and then be the victim of a situation, and then have a victim mindset, and then woe is me. Or if you're not prepared to label it and you're prepared to just let it be, you then have the agency to decide what you want to do with the situation and how you want to use it. Second thing is action trumps everything. It really does. Like you can just just start a podcast if that's the thing. Start a gym if that's the thing. Start a business if that's the thing. Pick up the phone, message somebody, DM them, ask them if they want to be on the show, and just keep going. Action will always, you'll get there faster if you act.
Mm.
You can have the best plan in the world, but it's not going to work out exactly how you think it's going to work out. Doesn't matter how much prep you do. So sometimes it's actually just better to just take action all the time and just fall forward. Learn, move, learn, move, learn, move, learn, move. So for me, that's always been something that I've taken along the journey, especially because at the start I was doing a podcast a week. And then when Grayson came along, it became quite challenging to get the videographer, because Lisa was doing the video, and became challenging to get her to navigate Gray, and then to do the editing as well, and correspond and find guests and prep for the show, do all of that once a week, whilst also working from like 6 to 6 in the gym. And it just became too much. It was an unrealistic expectation that I had at that stage. So then, doesn't mean that I have to stop, but then it just meant that we do one episode every 2 weeks. And that way we just continue to plod along. And then I tried to go back to once a week about 2 months ago, and that lasted for 2 weeks. And I was just like, this is just way too hectic to try and find people for the show. to rely on them to commit to the time that they said, and for life not to happen, and then to accumulate a buffer. How important it is to have buffer, to have like 2 or 3 people that you've already recorded in advance, so that you have that. So for me, it was just always about falling forward. Like, things are going to happen, take action despite everything, and then move forward. And if I had to give you a third one, I really enjoyed an episode I did with a guy called Dr. Ryan Blumenthal. I think he was episode 9. And it was quite serendipitous about how the whole episode panned out, because I was on my way to exclusive books, as I always am. And I was there to get another book. And this guy was there and he was doing a book signing. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. And he had 2 books up there. And naturally, you go and have a squiz and you see what the guy's up to and what his books are about. And he is a forensic pathologist. So his one book was called Autopsy, and I can't remember the other one off the top of my head, but he had 2 books out and he was talking about the most recent one that he'd written. And we got chatting. He's based in Pretoria. And I said to him, hey man, I really like what you're doing here. It seems very interesting. I'm going to buy these 2 books, and I've got a podcast, by the way. I'd love to have you on the show. Maybe we can do it remotely when you get back to Pretoria. And it was a Friday afternoon. He said, well, how are you placed tomorrow afternoon? And I'm like, oh, shucks, okay. I was like, yeah, okay, we'll have a go. So thankfully, his one book was an audio book. So it was on Audible. So I listened to that. I got that out the way. And because you've got the book, I don't know if you ever do this, when you listen to the audio book and you read at the same time.
I do.
Yeah. So like you can just put it at super speed. And then I managed to get through that book pretty quickly. Then I got through the second one as well by the Saturday afternoon. So I'd read both his books by the time we did the interview. And he was just on the high from being on his book tour, and I was on a high from this prep that had just worked out and happened. And he was just so ready to engage. And he spoke about something called Locard's exchange principle, or Locard's exchange theory, which basically is a term to that they use to say that everything leaves a trace. So when you're looking at an autopsy, when you're doing an autopsy, you're looking at a dead body, everything leaves a trace. And he then translated that into philosophy about life. So everything you do leaves a trace. It leaves a mark. And then everything that you go through leaves a mark on you. So be very mindful about the marks that you leave on other people, and be very mindful of the traces that have been left on you through your experiences. And that's something that's always stuck with me. And 2 incredible books. Very, very intelligent man. While it's on the subject, you ask about guests that I should refer to have on the show. He's a guy that would be super cool to have on the show. I don't know when he's next in Durban, but I know you do some online stuff as well. So he would be a good guy to reach out to, because he'd be super keen as mustard as well.
So we do online predominantly for our client partners that come and set up, and they have the screen here. But we have done Sean Thompson.
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah. I think we spoke about it too.
And I just love that man.
Yeah.
Such a nice way.
So yeah, then we set up, and Luke and the team there's a camera, and you can speak. I mean, there's a camera and the screen where you can literally engage with the guest, right? Yeah, but then you still have the quality experience.
Oh, really?
And then the edit.
Yeah,
and that sort
that's
of thing.
cool.
Yeah, so we've set up for that. One of my superpowers being awkwardness. It amplifies like to the extreme when I'm not in situation with you. Actually, I find it quite difficult on this to speak. I speak with my hands in the screen, and that sort of stuff, and I pick up energy. Even when you get emotional earlier, like I've learned that I have to block some of it, because otherwise, I don't know if you saw my eyes gloss, but I have to stop that. So I very much like the in person, and we've built a beautiful studio. Thanks again, Luke, for
it is awesome.
So it's just as a nice problem to have. But yeah, I will be doing a few more remotes, or we will be doing a few more remotes in the future. Definitely, I think what you've got there is you've got a nice you've leaned into it really nicely. So he was just phenomenal. Is he
Oh, it
one
was
of the
awesome,
incredible
man.
machines? One of the questions is, who are your incredible machines?
He would be one of them, yeah. He'd be a
Okay.
great guy, yeah, to speak to. Just so willing to engage
Yeah.
and just keen to like, just let's go deep. Let's pick stuff apart,
Okay.
And you learn, through his books, you'll notice that you learn a lot about what's happening in society through what comes across his table.
Okay.
Like if there's a new gang in town, in the area, because I mean he sees the best and the worst and the most and the unluckiest of people.
Mm.
So yeah, he was a really cool guy to have on the show. But in particular, the message he promoted in his book
Mm.
of trace theory, everything you do leaves a trace, leaves a mark, and then everything you do also accumulates as you go. You collect traces.
Yeah.
And it's just a nice way of going through life.
Yeah.
Understanding that words have meaning, how you interact with people has meaning. And we don't give enough credence to that.
Mm.
What you say to people does matter.
Mm.
The language that you use in engaging with somebody does matter. It is not flippant.
Mm.
It does make a difference to people when you say something really nice. And it does make a difference to people if you say something really mean.
Mm.
Just like we all have collected traces of examples of that along our life, when people have said nasty things and when people have said really kind things. So I think it's an important message that rings true no matter who you deal with on a daily basis.
It's actually, I think, a little bit. I love it. A little bit to add to that was that the negative actually often multiplies 5x. I've heard that spoken about quite a bit. So, but be careful. Yeah, it's a bit Jordan Peterson. Be careful who you tell good news to. Be careful who you tell bad news to. But there's the one that directly. Alon Reyes was a guest I would recommend if you haven't reached out yet. But we talked, and it came up quite significantly in his story and his lifeline and his thing is like, you never get away with anything. That's another thing that I've learned. Like you never get away with anything. So rather do good things because you won't get away with it. Like, and that's a nice problem to have.
Yeah.
We call that, and I love it. Love that trace. I didn't know it was trace theory. Okay, I'll check that out, and I'll thank you for that recommendation. If we're gonna let's transfer to the ad. I don't know if there is a segue in what it is, but maybe it's just it's a great ad, and let's show it, and then we can talk about it afterwards.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Morning, love.
Yeah. 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 Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Be good.
We'll make you feel at home, but bloody hell, she's not your wife. You might think she's your wife, but she's not.
I was actually wondering on this one, and we'll have the link to it. But those listening, that's a City Lodge ad, and I do recall there were more than one in the series.
There was a series of them, yeah.
Yes, and you actually said now before we started talking that this you couldn't find the exact one that you wanted to reference, but we'll look for it after this and we'll try to put it in. But this one was brilliant.
Yeah,
and,
it's so good.
Yeah. Well, what made you choose these ads?
I just found they were comical, and because there was then an emotion attached to the brand. I knew immediately that it was a City Lodge advert, and I'll always be able to tell you that those adverts were City Lodge adverts because there was this positive emotion that was felt because they were just so comedic. Like this guy rolling in there and he's flipping getting his day started and he's keen as mustard to get his coffee in, and this poor auntie who's holding her cup of coffee, and now he just swipes it, gives her a kiss, peck on the cheek, gives it a bit of a rub up against her, and this poor auntie who works at City Lodge clearly is just like trying her best to just remain calm because she's not doesn't have any idea of what's happening,
Mm.
and then gives her a little pat on the butt on the way out.
And because he's so comfortable with
He's just so comfortable with City
City
Lodge.
Lodge.
They've made him feel at home. That's the slogan.
yeah.
And it's just so clever. And then
see-
the other one, the favorite one, was when the guy walks down to the breakfast buffet counter, and he hasn't even got changed for work yet. He's in his tidy whities and there's like this fishnet like underpant things, and he's got his coffee and he's dishing up his bacon and his scrambled eggs, and he's whistling away, and then he farts, and then he turns around, and then there's just a floor full of people eating their breakfast watching this guy. And then as he turns around, he drops the plates and the coffee and everything smashes. So that was the original one. But again, same sort of notion of we'll make you feel at home.
Yeah.
And it was just such a really cool ad, because it always stuck out to me.
Yeah, but remember, you're not. You're actually not at home. So,
Exactly.
no, it's brilliant. Yeah, I haven't seen. It's interesting. We were speaking a bit off air about how we had Justin Apsey on and he's a managing director or exited very recently of Unilever South Africa, and one of the ads there was that ad, and how that wouldn't work now, but this wouldn't work probably because the slap on the bum. Or why? Why?
I reckon. Yeah, I reckon.
think-
I actually get upset about dudes smacking a lady's butt, and it's not your wife.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you think in South Africa though? I think maybe in America, maybe
I
not.
think parts of South Africa,
I think we would be okay.
definitely Europe.
We generally, Europe.
Yeah.
But we generally have a quite a cool sense of humor. Eh?
No, we
I
had no
think
brilliant.
we
Amazing.
generally.
But it was interesting that the nuances, like, yeah.
You reckon it'll fly in Upper Highway area?
Yeah, for
You
sure.
reckon?
I think
Hey,
if
I know a bunch of people who they'll.
So
they'll
that
take exception to it.
yeah,
no, they'll not be keen. Eh?
so,
Really, eh?
Yeah,
So that I don't know if you remember that Oma, and then it's just one cup as enough. And
it
there was
rings
this-
a bell. Yes.
Yeah, and then there was a person slapping like the lady that was about to put more in, because it was all about getting like
Mm,
you have to get it. It was actually so interesting. Again, in that episode, he unpacks it like that they don't want you to take more, because then the economies don't work of this liquid versus the powder and the thing, and they actually just one cup is enough
mm,
and no more. As soon as you start pouring more, that hit you. But then it was also like a woman hitting a man or a woman hitting a thing. There's so many things that you got to think about, and racial things. So one of them didn't even make it. One of the ads actually didn't make it to air because it was whatever the race and the gender was wrong
mm.
and deemed wrong. But yeah, it's actually quite critical. I think the interesting stuff working in this category, and I was ex-TBA and that sort of stuff, in marketing and advertising was like, and you feel like, oh, but Nando's get away with so much. People always reference that.
Mm.
But the way they did it was one of the interesting ways, is they would time it. It was all timing, and they would spend millions on those ads, by the way. And then they would flight it Friday evening or Friday afternoon, or where the commission just couldn't get to it. And then it would have flightings throughout the weekend where it wasn't, they found little loops, and they were very clever however they did it exactly. And then it was banned by Monday. But the whole weekend it was in between the rugby,
Wow.
and it was like thing, and then it was done. Then you would go to YouTube to find that link and share it and mix it or whatever the thing was at the time. You would make an effort. Yeah, but it was banned by Monday.
That is crazy. I didn't know that.
Those ads get banned quickly. But then they live on YouTube.
Yes.
What's that? No one's going to touch that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then if they do, someone else will upload it. Done. It's on the internet. It's live now.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, so that's a way to do it. You got to. So Rusty does this with the Springboks. I think we're like us three white guys talking about rugby. We want to talk about golf next because I got a question on that. But like there's exploits, and they're not, and it's not to be, because you never get away with anything. So it's you got to work out what's positive, what's negative.
Mm.
That is, in my understanding, was an exploit that was positive. Get this message out, because it's like those Nando's ads have been like incredible. Like the one where everyone must leave, the foreign, like so like so now, right now, with what we've just gone through and are going through. Everyone must leave South Africa. And then the last one is a Khoisan person. It's the only person left. Jack.
Yes.
And he says, "How you go? I was always here," and stuff like that. But that's a big like discussion, argument, all that
Yeah.
sort of stuff. That won't fly. That must have been pulled almost immediately because people would have taken exception with it. Not just up a highway, but everywhere. Because only but yeah, that's the question that we had. One of the questions was from the team, and we didn't touch on it when you were talking. The segue, and I wanted to drop this in, but because there's a golfer's journal. Are you familiar with golfer's journal?
No.
Okay, so I'll look and see if we have a link to it. It's actually a Westville boy. Like, he was my senior at school, Brendan Thomas. He's like, it's American-based magazine, like, and journal. It's like phenomenal. The quality is exceptional. The brand he's done is amazing. But he's a Durban-based boy that's living in California, as I understand it, and he's got Golfer's Journal. I'll see if I can send you something on it, and we'll link a chat. But the question was around why the focus on golf in the fitness world.
Yeah, so I started out of varsity. My first job was at Kersney College, and I did the strength and conditioning for their sports teams. But for the most part, as you can imagine, it was mostly rugby based. And as in their high performance center, they started to include more and more sports. One of the sports teams that they wanted to get into the gym was the golf side. And I've played golf for a long time. I picked up the game from about 10 years old. So it was always something that I had a keen interest in, and I enjoyed participating and playing. And I have many, many fond memories on the golf course. But I never really thought about how the skills that I'd acquired and the knowledge that I acquired at varsity might link with high performance in golf. And at the time, my boss, when he asked me to start to work with the golf guys, I thought to myself, I wonder how I would train them differently from the rugby guys. Like what would change and what would remain the same in terms of the exercises that they do, how we structure the workouts. And then he put me on to the Titleist Performance Institute. And at that time, it was 2014. 2014. They actually had a level 1 seminar happening in Joburg in 2 or 3 months' time. And I started to investigate, and I looked into what they do, and I was really taken aback by the detail and the rate at which that market and industry was growing, and the products that they were putting out, TPI in specific. And then I went up there, I did my level 1. And then after that, I think it was 2 months later, I had started my own thing. And then originally, probably from 2015 is when I started until 2019, pushing COVID, I was working exclusively with golfers. So I wouldn't train the general population at all. It was athletes, aspiring professional golfers, and then your weekend warriors, the guys that are playing on a Wednesday and a Saturday, and they want to keep fit and healthy and increase their mobility and increase their strength. And then that was it. It was exclusively golf until COVID hit, and then I just sort of opened the doors and started to train whoever was keen to train. And then now it's about 50-50. And then Kloof, the studio, is a ladies only studio. So that's not for golfers. That's just for women who are wanting to get stronger, etc. So it still is very much a part of what I do on the daily. I would say from a marketing and the brand that I've created, I'm probably still known as the golf fitness guy. So, and I'm okay with that because that is a major part of what I do. But the business has more than one element to it now, and services a lot of clients from a number of different areas and different skill sets, other athletes, general population, etc. But it was a nice blend because I was very keen as a golfer. I grew up playing golf with my dad, and it's nice to be able to go to those professional events and work there, and to see these athletes at the peak of their powers. playing a sport that I love to play and watch.
Mm.
So it's something that's very near and dear to me.
Okay, well, that's great. The marketer in me thinks it's brilliant because it's quite neat. It's in the niche and you've
Mm.
target and your ICP or ideal customer profile, as everyone knows, throw some jargon around here. But
Because you got to be smart because you're
yeah, because
marketing,
we studied
Throw
marketing
out the
earlier, so like I
ICPs and
gotta
the
craft
distings and the, yeah.
think we're clever for the audience. But the it is one that generally has a nice disposable income because if they can afford golf, they can probably afford other things.
Correct.
It's very clever.
Yeah.
So there you should have
Yeah.
been in marketing.
Yeah, I should have been. Well,
So
yeah,
what-
it's something I stumbled into. It
yeah,
wasn't
so you have,
intentional.
so
Yeah.
you've got it already, and that was one of the questions: is why, like, what's the significance of the brand name?
Yeah. So I love my name, the brand name, because it's rooted in that journey, starting from the golf fitness thing, being at Kersney, and then starting my own thing. And again, coming full circle to how I used to and still consume a lot of different content about motivation, about personal development, self-improvement. There was a guy, Les Brown. You're familiar with Les Brown? He was a motivational speaker.
Another name.
African American guy, big in like the late 90s, early 2000s. Like really like a big, boisterous, charismatic character, incredible speaker. And I took his YouTube videos and I converted them to MP3s, and then I put the MP3s and wrote them on a disc, and then put the CD into the car, and then you listen to it back in the day when you had to put CDs into a car. And one of his speeches, he says, want shows up in conversation, expectation shows up in behavior. Judge a tree by the fruit it bears, not the fruit that it wants or talks about. And I thought that was just such a powerful way of looking at things. And then I started to ask myself the question, well, what do I expect of myself? And what can I tell about myself from my actions of what I'm expecting? And if somebody had to see me without them knowing me, if they just had to watch me for a day, a week, a month, and not ask me any questions, if they just observed my behavior, what conclusion would they draw about me as a person? And I think that was just such a powerful realization for me, that expectation shows up in behavior. So to then expect performance, what do you expect of yourself? And what do you expect of yourself when you then come into the gym? What do you expect of your life? What do you expect of your relationships? So that was the thread that I unraveled that led to Xpect Performance. And I think it's quite nice because you don't often tell people about it because you get caught up in the day-to-day. But reflecting on our conversation today, it's quite nice. In my mind, I'm pretty stoked because I've made sense of it and I've closed the loop on it just based on our conversation that we've had today about expectation, action trumps everything, observing other people. It's quite nice. So I'm reaffirmed that I'm still happy with my name.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant the way you've articulated it now too, because it's like when you're going to those gyms, you just don't know what to expect, but like that really you can expect it. And exactly what we talked about. So like you know what that feeling is when you've left the performance, like how good that feels. So yeah, I mean that's phenomenal. The core of your performance life. So you went out. Why for you is that such like performance fitness that been core to you? You played golf. It's interesting because I think the criticism that people would have is like how fit are golfers and that sort of thing. Like it's not, and people don't know, like for instance, ignorance about like motocross. People never understand the fitness of F1 drivers and stuff like that. So people underestimate the fitness that is required and the mobility, obviously. But for you, now it's opened up. It's not just golf; it's more. why is that been so important to you, like this fitness and um aspect?
I think it's an embodiment of who I am. If I look back to the things in my life that I've prioritized, I've always prioritized sport. I've always prioritized being active. Um, I've always been interested in self-improvement and self-development. And as I've accumulated knowledge in those two areas, it seemed like a natural transition to then help other people with those things. So much of, as I've alluded to already, much of the gym is not even about the weights and the reps and the sets. It's about understanding where a person's at, helping them navigate through some headwinds, if they've got things going on outside of the gym, making sure that they don't fall off the wagon completely, and they keep doing the things that are the right things for them, despite maybe turbulence in other areas of their life. And I think that is the part that I find most fulfilling. And that's the thing that I think if you had to ask people who come to the gym, what would be the part that stands out and what would be maybe a differentiating factor apart from the golf, if you ask the non-golfers, it would be the fact that there is this sense of camaraderie and understanding that we're all just trying to improve. And it's not always easy, but if you're transparent and you have a space where you feel like you can be vulnerable and you can share how you're feeling and you can celebrate each other's victories and you can also sit with each other when things are not going well, then that is going to make for a sustainable product and for sustainable results, as an example. So for me, when I'll share a story with you, I had somebody who has had an incredibly tough time. Her husband has Alzheimer's, and if you don't know, often they have trouble sleeping. So he will wake up 5 or 6 times a night. So she's like 70, and she's basically, it's like having a toddler that wakes up, except the toddler was the person that you were married to and spent your life with. And she is just, she's just shattered every day because she has to wake up at strange hours. And most of my training is semi-private, so maximum 4 or 5 people in a class. Very seldom will somebody come in and it'll be just them. But for some reason, we had some cancellations, and she came in and she was just like a shell of a woman. And she's a very strong woman. She's a matriarch of the family, and she comes from a background where she's worked incredibly hard to build a life for herself and for her family. So to see a strong woman like that really taking strain was an opportunity for us to do something out of the ordinary. So I said to her, look, it's just you and I today. It's a beautiful day outside. Durban winters are the best. Let's do something different. And my gym is based at Durban Country Club. So we locked up and we headed out and we walked to Bike and Bean, grabbed a coffee, walked along the promenade, and then came back. And we just chatted, and she maybe vented a bit, and we spoke about other things. But then at the end of it, she was walking down the steps, and then she turned around and she came all the way back up, and she said, I'm sorry, I just have to give you a hug. Because that was the thing. Like, I don't know. I didn't know that I needed it, but in hindsight, I really did. And those stories for me are the things that will, when I think back on the day, those are the things that I will be most proud of. Not necessarily somebody who's just maybe done a personal best, whilst that does excite me and it's a testament to a person's hard work. I think it's very easy to be stoked when things are going well. Not so easy to keep going when things are not going well. And it's that time when you've helped uplift somebody in a difficult period that is what is the driving force behind going to the gym every day. Because I think that's the part that people will remember the most. Not necessarily, yeah, I got super strong. and this and that and the next thing. It was like, yeah, we shared this moment, and he really helped me.
Mm.
So yeah, that is definitely the thing that sort of lights my fire as far as that's concerned.
We just had Cookie on as an episode. He's an EO guy, and he said, "Never forget how you people make you feel." I think it ties into that. But as I understand it, like what I've got a lot out of you out of the session is like the accumulation of knowledge. Like you love that, but then the execution on behalf of that knowledge, that's extremely important. And then it sounds like what you're doing with that. So that's execution action, call it like action. So actually, and then that's easier for people that just want to get personal bests. That's great. Happy with that. But it's actually more difficult to execute based on the knowledge, to get an execution of performance in other when there's when life gets in the way. And the ability is something that you work on, I can hear and I can see, and that you work on constantly, as being present enough to be able to make those calls. That's the only way to do it, because it's not out of the textbook, it changes. It's being present enabled you to go for that walk and know that, like, no, we're not just going to do laps today for her. She didn't need that. That's really remarkable. Well, you say incredible.
Yeah.
Can we transition to the quote that you've picked?
Yes.
Yeah.
I went a bit extra. I decided to give a poem.
Yes, so we've had poems before. I'm
Have you?
very happy with it.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to read it or if you know this one.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's get it.
So I originally came up with this, or came across it in Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. Have you read Think and Grow Rich?
No.
Incredible book. I've read it twice.
Okay.
And what strikes me about the book so much is that I think it was 1912s when it was written, and it's still a bestseller today. So I mean,
it's
something
on a list for me to read. I just
something that stood the test of time. And I came across it here. He quotes the poem. It's by Jesse B. Rittenhouse, and it says, "I bargained with life for a penny, and life would pay no more. However, I begged at evening when I counted my scanty store. For life is just an employer. He gives you what you ask. But once you have set the wages, why, you must bear the task. I worked for a menial's hire, only to learn dismayed that any wage I had asked of life, life would have willingly paid." So for me, that was just so on point, because how often do we undervalue ourselves and underestimate our abilities to build a life that is meaningful and fulfilling? So I always think and this goes back to courage as well, is having the courage to ask of life, I want this thing. And it doesn't matter if it's outrageous or you think it's outrageous. Imagine if at the end of it, life would have willingly paid, but you just never asked for it. And by asking for it, that would mean taking action that signifies that you want the thing, not just asking for it and sitting back. So that would be the expectation. So what expectation do I have of life? So then what behaviors are going to drive that expectation of what I have of life? So, and that for me is just something that has always stood out.
Even one of your questions in your podcast, I don't know if you mean if it's something you do, but you did. We got onto the topic of asks, I think, and because I remember speaking, I'm pretty confident I did this, but like my business coach I was doing a perfect year. I was doing some. Says, what are you looking forward to next year? And I said, more critics.
Yes, I remember that you said that. Yeah.
And people, and she was like, John, I said, do you really mean that? Like more critics? And I said, yes. Yeah, and there were reasons for that. So obviously, I want to work out what signal and noise. I think I'm ready for that. Like it's difficult to get criticized. but unless even constructively can be difficult to bear.
Yes.
But I wish, yeah. So it was interesting. So it's just something you've got in you, asking for other people's asks in some way. I don't know how we got there exactly.
Yeah,
So it's important.
it is.
And that, sorry, just before you get to that,
Mm.
courage. I know you've said you feel you haven't. It sounded like you were hypercritical about like how you on the courage front prior to now embodying this word, but like being an entrepreneur is one of the bravest things I think I've ever seen any people do. I'm in awe of entrepreneurs all the time, and I study them continuously, and then the podcasting thing when nobody. I mean, like we talk about. I met Luke at TEDx, like 2023, 2020, and before I met Luke, I didn't even know. I didn't even know anybody that'd been on a podcast, let alone had a podcast. He had a podcast, and I'd already seen his podcast and loved it. And and then I knew sort of Rich Mulholland we had talked about, but I knew of him. I didn't really know Rich. Like now, I feel like I know him, and it's also I've had a podcast, and I feel like I know him even more. But yeah, so I would I hope that you that at some that comforts you a little bit. That like the outside, like you mentioned this too. The arts is not necessarily what's being seen in.
Yeah.
We have that in marketing, and it was actually one of the things when I first left and launched my own thing when I was looking to be employed after studying. I launched an agency consultancy called the Dutch Oven, and it was like everyone knows what a Dutch oven is, but it's like it's a poikie. I don't know why you're laughing. Like no, it's obviously
It's amazing how if you put the
men's
word
joke.
if you put the word Dutch before something, it makes it sound way more intense and hectic.
I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, but the Dutch oven is also comical, guys, and it was meant to be that way because the line below was from Awesome Powers. But Bastard was like the line was everyone loves their own brand.
Yes,
So,
yes.
so then the joke gets even worse, and this is again boys' humor that's come out of, but like still, it's true. Like generally, that's the thing is most agencies struggle with getting it over to the business partner, the client partners that they have is like, you love your own brand, you see it the way you want to see it. It's the inward thing, but the outward is this is how the world sees you and the
Yes.
brand. It's just a promise delivered, and you're not delivering.
Mm.
And then you can say this till you, but if you're not delivering, you're not the promise
Yeah.
delivered. So it's interesting you said like to segue back was just like the way you see yourself and the courage. I definitely think you're brave, and courage would absolutely resonate with where just to get to that number and carry on doing the podcasts and doing it the way you do. So
Thanks.
I hope that resonates with you, and not to stop you pushing, because I
Yes.
think it's like that's another thing that's courageous is want more.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Is there anything when you close with?
Live intentionally. Don't be guilty of becoming an extra in somebody else's movie. Be the hero in your own movie. And to do that, you have to be very intentional about the decisions that you make and not allow it to fall prey to happenstance and become part of somebody else's intention. That could mean anything. Doesn't mean you have to start your own business. It means you could work for somebody else. But it does mean that you should sit down and you should think about the type of life that you want to have, and you should do so with intention. And it means carving out time, unfortunately. And it also means probably then reframing what you view as productive, because busyness is not a proxy for productivity. So just because you're busy at an office doing a thing doesn't necessarily mean you're being productive. And if we can carve out the time and reframe it as a productive use of our time, that what are the rules of the game that I would like to play by? What do I want my life to look like? And make intentional decisions to then charter a trajectory to that. So be less, this is a wonderful thing, I've seen it a lot from James Clear. Be less focused on where you're at now and be more focused on your trajectory. What direction are you headed? And give credence to that. And make sure that you have had enough intentional decisions, that you are confident that you charted on the path that you'd like to go.
The incredible Clinton Shum.